Boys and girls, happy Friday. You made it through the 4th week, wow, of distance learning. Today we're going to be doing our weekly assessment. So if you look down at our list, today's date is April 24th. So we're going to be doing Bogie, Lost and Found. So I would go, and this is in your packet. Remember, it's at the very end of your grammar skills packet. So you'll go to Bogie, Lost and Found. When you find it, it'll have the date, 4/24. You'll see the title here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So you always want to read that beginning piece of information because it's already going to start introducing you to the topic, okay? So it says, Jeremy's teacher asked him to write about something that he lost but then found. Jeremy wrote about the time he lost his dog. Right here. It's already telling me what he wrote about, so that's already giving me a clue to the topic. And then it says, Jeremy wants you to revise and edit his paper. That means we might be fixing some sentences, we might be fixing some words, some parts of speech. Read Jeremy's paper, then answer the questions. So first thing we want to know is we want to know how many paragraphs there are. There are 6 of them. Okay, so you number your paragraphs. This is important because when you go to the questions, you might need to know where some of the paragraphs are. Then you want to note this as your intro. And this, there's 7, as your conclusion. So there are 7 paragraphs here. We have an intro and we have our conclusion. All right. Now, why do we know why do we need to know where our intro is? Because we know that our introduction is going to introduce us to the topic. So in our intro, we already start knowing, or should start knowing, what this story is going to be about. And we should be able to confirm the topic that they mention here, which is about the time he lost his dog, that being Jeremy, the writer. So it says, I have many pets, but Bogie is my favorite. Bogie is a dog. Our family adopted him from an animal shelter. We brought him home on Saturday morning. He was shy and scared. I don't think he knew that our home was his home. So they are already talking about Bogie, which is his pet. So they're introducing us to his pet. And throughout this paper, he should start writing about the time he lost his dog. So his pet, Bogie. Is it making a connection to the beginning? Yes, because it's telling us about his dog that was lost. So we're already finding out about his dog. As you continue reading, each of these paragraphs should support the main topic of Bogie getting lost, okay, which is Jeremy's pet. In the conclusion, it says, I guess he figured out that our home was his home after all. So this is an ending to the story, okay? This is our conclusion. This should be connecting back to the introduction. Look at sentence 6. What does it say? I don't think he knew that our home was his home. So maybe this is going to start telling us how or why he got lost. He didn't think it was his home. Maybe he wandered off. And look at the conclusion. I guess he figured out that our home was his home after all. This is connecting back. So I can already infer that probably his pet was found. His dog was found, right? So as you're reading through, you need to make sure that you're looking for how these body paragraphs, okay? And you learned this with Miss Ramirez. These body paragraphs support the introduction, the main topic. How do they connect? How does all of this story flow? And the way you're going to do that is by adding your hashtags for each paragraph, okay? They don't have to be long, but you do need to write them. This is so your brain can make connections to the story and remember what it is you're reading about. So let's go ahead and go to the questions. Now we have a lot of change questions here, which I love. These are really fun and easy to do. So in each of these, you're checking for a change, okay? And more than likely it's a word, a punctuation mark, a capitalization. But let's do number 1, for example. When we're looking at making changes, well, we need to make the changes to the story, right? We need to know what's happening here. Here I see 2 words that are words, but they have different meanings. So they're using the words in a different way. So we're going to be using our cups. This represents usage. We could also be checking punctuation. We could also be checking spelling. We could also be checking capitalization. Okay, so as we're going through each of these change questions, these are the things we're focusing on. We're remembering our capitalization rules. We're remembering our punctuation rules. We're remembering our spelling rules, or using a dictionary to check. Dictionary.com is a great tool. And we're checking, how are they using words? Are they using the correct meaning? Are they using it in the right part of the sentence? So let's get back to our question. Here, they're using 2 different words. We need to find out what is the correct usage. Here I notice they added a double T. So that's spelling, right? Here they're inserting a comma, so that's going to be punctuation. And here they're changing singular to plural. So that's, how are they using it? Are they using it as one animal or more than one animal? So when I go back to the story and I make those changes, comma, insert a comma after him, so right here, and then animals. I'm going to find out. First of all, I need to know what are and our mean. So are is actually a linking verb. It's a part of a sentence that helps start describing the subject. Like, we are at the park. It's telling where they are, right? So when you're looking at are, it's more of a linking verb. Our is a possessive pronoun that we learned about a couple weeks ago. And our means it belongs to us, to more than one person, right? So it says, our family adopted him. Do you think they're using it as a linking verb here, or as the family belonging to them? I think it sounds better with the family being like our, like you would say, our family had a celebration. You're talking about you guys together, all of you. So this is a question mark for me. Now adopted, I can go into dictionary.com and check the spelling. So make sure you do that. If you have a paper dictionary, go there. Make sure you check if the spelling is correct. Inserting a comma. Well, let's see. Our family adopted him. Pause. From an animal shelter. Why do I need to pause there, right? I don't. This is an incorrect use of a comma. It's not a compound sentence. It's not listing. It's not items in a series. So we don't need to pause between 2 parts of the sentence that don't need to be separated. And then animals. Let's see. Our family adopted him from an animals shelter. Well, animals means more than one. But since describing the shelter, it's telling you it's an animal shelter. That's the kind of shelter it is. It's not telling us about more than one animal. We do not need to make it plural. Okay? So once you go back into the dictionary and you make sure on the spelling, if this is not the spelling, you're going to eliminate, and probably your answer will be A, right? But you are double checking everything. So what did I do? I first looked at what I was working with. What kind of changes are they trying to make here, right? Then I go back, I actually make the changes, and then I reread this sentence with these different changes. And I read it 3 or 4 times, depending on what kind of change you're making, because you need to hear it, you need to see it, and you need to check it. That's how you complete a editing change question, a cups question. So for example, on number 2, here I noticed they're making a capitalization change. Here they're changing me to I. Those are both words. They are used very differently. That's usage, and we learned about pronouns a couple weeks ago. So go back to your notes if you need to. Change him to himself. Those are also changes in pronouns. How are they using it? Should I use it as him in the sentence or as himself? So usage is really a lot about words and how you're using them in the sentence. Let's go ahead and go to number 3. Okay? This one's a little bit different. The correct way to write sentences 12 and 13. So let's look at 12 and 13. When mom finally came. Well, I see an Arubis word here. And if I say when mom finally came, well, what happened when she came? This is an incomplete thought. So I'm definitely going to have to combine it with something. Of course, I had to go to school. This is a complete sentence. So this one could stand alone. It has a transition here. That's why we have a comma. And it has a subject and a predicate. I, what did they do? Had to go to school. So I know, yeah, this one could stand alone, but this one cannot. So more than likely, I need to combine them in some way. So as I go through, I already know D is out. They are not written correctly because sentence 12 cannot stand alone. Okay, so I continue on. Of course, remember we have that comma because it's a transition. So this comma is a good part. Okay. When Monday finally came, I had to go to school. So we have our Rubis word. We have now, remember, when you start with a Rubis, you need a comma. So we do have our comma here in a good place. Okay, let's look at letter B. Of course, Monday finally came, I had to go to school. They combined everything without any pausing. Let's read it again like that. Of course, Monday finally came, I had to go to school. Does that sound as good as C? And also, we know that in the story, they already had a comma. That means it was correctly written in that spot because it was a transition. So we cannot remove the comma here. All right? So B and D are automatically out. I want you to check A and I want you to check C and choose your final answer. But make notice of when they are using commas, where they are using commas. Go back to the original sentences, see how they're changing them. See if you're supposed to be taking out commas when they're already supposed to be there. So with sentences, you're checking a lot of different things, but use your original sentences to guide you. Also, make sure you're reading through, and when you see a comma, you are pausing and really emphasizing the pause there to see, hey, is that a good spot to pause? After transitions, it is a good spot to pause. Listen, of course, I had to go to school. So you can pause there. Of course, I had to go to school. That is a good place to pause because it is a transition word or phrase, okay? So you do use commas after transitional phrases. As you continue on, continue noticing the changes that are being made. Look at this. Usage. 2 pronouns, right? We learned how we use them in different parts of the sentence, and they don't always fit in every part. You need to be reading. Inserting a comma, right? That's punctuation. Make sure you pause when you read that comma there. Whimper to whimpering. They're adding ing. They're using the words very differently, right? The dog will whimper if you leave it outside, or the dog was whimpering when it was outside, right? So thinking and making those connections of how are they using these different types of verbs, present tense or ongoing. Ing words are ongoing actions. That means they're happening over a period of time. Here we go. We're changing spelling right here. We learned about these homophones a couple weeks ago. right? What do these homophones mean? Go back to your notes. Was and were, these are our linking verbs, so that's usage. We learned about subject-verb agreement 2 days ago, right? So you would think, okay, is the subject singular, right? Then the verb should have an S. Is the subject plural? Then the verb should have no S. Read it in the sentence. You'll hear those mistakes right away. Dug, to dig. Okay, this can be checked in the dictionary. Look up the original word dig. It'll tell you the past tense verb, which one is correct. Do we say a dug or do we say a digged? He dug a hole or he digged a hole. And double check that dictionary. So make sure you're using dictionary.com. Really simple way. You type in the word, it'll tell you the correct spelling, it'll tell you the past tense, it'll give you some ing spelling. Use that resource. Spelling has changed, but I also know, that the usage has changed, because personally I know that these are 2 words. If you didn't know, guess what? Dictionary.com. Really simple way to double check your work. Because they changed the spelling, they also changed the usage. Because these 2 words are spelled differently, there are homophones because they mean different things. Here, fence to fence. Again, right here. All of these you should be using dictionary.com for sure. Okay, double checking those words and how they're using them, how they're spelling them. Last one. Afterwards to then. This is a usage of transitions. So you need to see how they're using the transitions to connect to sentence 27, because you're going to add it to 28, or you're making a change in 28. Transitions, and you learned it with Miss Ramirez, they make a bridge between 2 pieces of information, 2 ideas, 2 sentences, 2 paragraphs. So double check that. Here we go with our pronouns again. We've learned pronouns, so this is very helpful to us because we've been learning about this and reviewing it. We to us. Can't use them in the same parts. Remember, we had subject pronouns and object pronouns. You can't swap them or they don't make sense in the sentence. So reread it with each. Right here, easy way, dictionary.com. How do you spell rolled when you add ed? Double check it. And then this apostrophe S is adding usage. It's changing the usage. Why do I say that? Because windows, what am I trying to say there? What does that mean? More than one, right? What does this mean? Apostrophe S. It means we're showing ownership. So go back to the sentence. Connect to the idea there. Is it more than one window they're talking about? Or is it talking about the window owning something? Does something belong to the window? So I gave you a lot of really helpful notes. It might have seemed fast, but this is a video. So great thing is you can pause it as you go through each one if you want to go one by one. So here you could go back, pause it, start doing your hashtags, understand the story, right? Because that'll help you when you get to making connections of these words to the sentences. Then come here, go to the first one, pause it, finish it, right? Use my notes, finish it, and pause after each one so that you can go through it slowly and really, really focus and take the time. Today's big resource is dictionary.com, so make sure you're doing that and using that. Good luck, boys and girls. Really try your best. Take your time with this. Make sure you're staying focused. You're using all your tools. You're using all your knowledge. Have a great weekend.